whenever we talk about the issue around Zionism, it seems to be getting progressively worse over time. We're in the 21st century. Palestine is one of the few countries where there's this wholesale genocide taking place, crimes against humanity. We do know it's playing out in other parts of the world as well, genocide against minority groups, like, for example, the Uyghur Muslims,
Absolutely.
the Rohingya, etc. So let me understand how you, as Ziyaad Patel, an attorney, has teamed up with Media Review Network,
Yes.
and
Okay.
also a principal
Okay.
complainant,
If I may come in.
Saifuddin Bester in Cape Town. I just wanted to name the other actors in this issue. So over to you.
Okay. So I've represented recently this year Saifuddin Bester, who's a paramedic from Cape Town, and the Media Review Network, the Palestine Solidarity Committee in Cape Town, as well as the Media Review Network. And these have been institutions that and people that have been quite involved in the most recent case that we have brought before investigative and prosecutorial authorities. Julie, as I've been already, past.
Okay, we seem to have lost the connection there. We have been battling to hook up with Attorney Ziyaad Patel. Let's go for a very short break and see if we can rather get him on the phone, inshallah. The line does seem to be pretty problematic. Please stay with us.
Me back to the comfort of my childhood and the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Devastating floods in Pakistan have washed away villages, claimed the lives of more than 1,000 people, damaged nearly 1 million homes, and left over 33 million people in desperate need of help. As the catastrophe unfolds, Islamic relief is on the ground, reaching people with life-saving aid. Our team are working tirelessly to food and shelter. Your support is urgently needed now to help save more lives. Donate now to Islamic
Do you want to
relief.
test the telephone now?
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. We've had a bit of a shaky start. Inshallah, it will be smooth sailing from here on. It is 17 after 8 o'clock, and we're looking into a criminal complaint laid on the basis of criminal charges against South African nationals and citizens, including Zionist institutions, for the violation of the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities Act, and the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. To unpack all of this legalese for us is Attorney Ziyaad Patel from Ziyaad E Attorneys. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome back. And I do hope that you can hear me loudly and clearly.
Yes, indeed. Wa alaikum assalam. And once again, a very good morning to your viewers and your listeners. And thank you for the invitation on your show, Julie.
Okay, very serious matter. And I hand over to you to unpack this matter to me and the listeners this morning, inshallah.
Yes, thank you. So what we've done is, as part of a broader campaign and in terms of lawfare advocacy, which I've been involved in for quite a period of time, especially on Palestine, we've recently this year lodged a case with investigative and prosecutorial authorities in Pretoria, and the case relates to the legislation that you've previously mentioned. We have also used the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act in the past against Zionist recruitment, as well as South African nationals and citizens who go to serve illegally and unlawfully in the Israeli Defense Force. And of course, we know the perpetration of crimes and war crimes and genocide that happens in occupied Palestine, Gaza, and in the West Bank and in the occupied Palestinian territories. But we've also added onto our armor a very important piece of legislation called the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities. Now, this is a piece of legislation specifically utilized to alter the narrative that has been out there in mainstream media, as well as against the advocacy against that advocacy campaign that Palestinians are struggling for the just right, to self-determination, the just right to resistance in order to exist, and of course, for the return of their homes and their land. And Palestinians have always been shown to be terrorists in their lawful, aspirations for freedom. Now, the terrorism corridor probe was unpacked at a press conference in Cape Town in March this year, where we dealt with the specific nuts and bolts of the legislation and the evidence that we had brought to the authorities, and why we rely on this legislation as well. The criminal complaint is extremely extensive. There are over 15 nationals or South African citizens that are implicated in the docket and in the probe, I would say, for violation of the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, for also being placed either in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge in 2014, or the war that happened in May 2021. So we continue to utilize South Africa's implementation of the Rome Statute, which is the International Criminal Court Act, as well as the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. But we've also added on the Zionist terrorism charges in terms of the legislation that I spoke about. And this particularly goes to South African Zionist institutions such as the South African Zionist Federation, the South African Zionist Federation, TELFED, as well as the Israeli Center of Cape Town, and other institutions that are complicit in the illegal, processing and facilitating and recruiting of South Africans to go and serve in the IDF. And we must remember, that Julie, that the Jews that go to serve, the South African Jews that go to serve, are young, impressionable Jews. Between the ages of probably 18 after school to 25. they have promised through these institutions the possibility of going to study in occupied Palestine at institutions that we continue wanting to boycott. They are given sometimes accommodation and very impressionable, leave the country and, eventually go and serve illegally in the IDF. What's important is that the terrorism charges, link the Zionist institutions to the Jewish National Fund, who's been collecting money in South Africa for a long period of time. And then these funds are actually utilized in the occupied Palestinian territories and, in the greenwashing of Palestinian villages such as the village of Lubia, or, the utilization of the absenteeism law because Palestinians are then, thrown out of their land or forced out cleansing them of their land and utilizing the absenteeism law through the Jewish National Fund. Those funds are then utilized in the purchase of those properties that have been now vacated, and through a money laundering system, they are then those transactions, are legalized in terms of so-called Israeli law, and that forms part of why we call it, we utilize the prevention of organized crime as well, because it's a holistic structure that we're actually attacking in South Africa, and asking our investigative and prosecutorial authorities to probe. I just want to also add an important development. Michael Link, who's the Special Rapporteur for the United Nations on Palestine, made a recent finding that the extension of settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories constitutes a war crime. And this is also goes against the United Nations Security Council resolution 2334 that there should be no further settlement expansions. So the Jewish National Fund, in the way it is, collecting funds from South Africans and institutions, and then being part and parcel of the facilitation of utilizing those funds in having settler colonialism and Israeli settlers going to take Palestinian property, actually constitutes war crimes because it constitutes an extension of settlements. So that is quite important. There's also been important findings by Amnesty International that has made a very, very crucial findings that Israel is perpetrating the crime of apartheid in the manner it operates. And if I may just mention, it says Israel imposes a system of oppression and domination against Palestinians across all areas under its control in Israel and the OPT, and against Palestinian refugees in order to benefit Jewish Israelis. This amounts to apartheid as prohibited in international law, policies and practices which are intended to maintain a crude system of control over Palestinians have left them fragmented geographically and politically, frequently impoverished in a constant state of fear and insecurity. I mean,
let me just come in here. Let me come in here, please, Ziyaad. I think to your credit as well, you working on the case, you the attorney representing this very important matter. To your credit as well, and all the people that's working with you on this case, MRN as well, is that I understand you've been given a major boost by the lawfare advocacy efforts undertaken in Canada. Tell us a little bit about that. Also, I'd say the detractors here in South Africa, the Zionists, would argue, for example, that thus far you're only claiming or accusing 15 South African nationals acting as mercenaries. I'm not sure if that's the right terminology, because mercenaries fighting other people's wars do get paid very handsomely. How different is the situation, as compared to mercenaries? So the issue around, are the numbers big enough for all of the effort we're putting in? And is this a fight? Obviously, it needs to be fought from all fronts, simply because it seems to be getting progressively worse. The Palestinians are being stripped off on a daily basis of any tiny bit of rights that they have, things seems to be getting progressively worse against the Palestinians. But as I've said, the South African Zionists may argue that you're talking about only 15 South African nationals or mercenaries going over to Israel to take up this matter. Your response?
Yes, thank you, Julie. So, for me to come in on the Canadian advocacy campaign is extremely important because we do advocate lawfare advocacy, whereby we try to strengthen national jurisdictions across countries. We do know that the ICC and the United Nations are fragmented, and also they are intractable in terms of the decision making that is required to actually bring justice to conflict areas like Palestine, for instance. So it's important that across jurisdictions there's same or similar kind of campaigns that are happening. But it's important that in Canada, for instance, a private prosecution had went underway by David Mavasser and Rahab Nazal. And this was done after the Canadians had launched an application or a probe for investigating the recruitment of recruiting organizations that then recruit Canadian citizens or nationals to go and serve in the IDF. Now, Canada's laws are slightly different to ours, where a person may go and serve in a foreign army that is not at war with Canada, for instance, and they may not, attract any violation of the legislation. However, when there's an active recruitment by institutions in Canada for persons to go and serve in a foreign army, that certainly can come under the microscope and be probed by Canadian authorities. Like South Africa and other jurisdictions, there's also, a very strong Zionist lobby that interferes with the, political will to actually do something through the public criminal justice system. And Canada has taken us one step further, whereby they've now looked at a private prosecution, of SAR LR Canada, which has been actively involved in the recruitment of Canadians to go and serve in the IDF. And we most certainly, welcome this motivation and this development in terms of lawfare advocacy, because we've also been constrained in terms of our public criminal justice system here, where the evidence is very clear. It's self-incriminating. They are not only, we've actually put a probe together of 15 South African nationals or Zionists, but we know there are many, many, many more, in fact, hundreds more that are going to serve. It's just, impossible as outside of an investigating institution to go and get evidence on all the Zionists that are going to serve legally. And it's probably ranging into the thousands. But Julie, as you would know, that in law, it just takes the example of one, to prosecute one South African or national or institution in terms of the charges that we've laid, and it sets down the precedent system in a very clear message that this kind of actions will not be tolerated in terms of a constitutionally free and democratic society, especially where there's fundamental violation of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. So we know that the numbers extend to many more. For instance, I've been part of the Gaza docket in 2008, 2009, when the first war happened in Operation Castlead. And I know that we had collated a list of names, I think over 90 names at any given time that may have served in the IDF. And we had asked investigative authorities to probe that. However, what has happened is we've subsequently moved on from there and looked more carefully into the terrorism, the terrorism legislation. Because specifically what the IDF is doing, for instance, when you have IDF snipers going and shooting Palestinians on the Gaza fence, and specifically targeting Palestinian medics, medics and people in the media. Shireen Abu Akleh was also targeted, and Palestinian youth are targeted, or Hamas officials are targeted. That actually constitutes acts of terrorism. And South Africans are being trained paramilitarily outside the South African National Defence Force to go and serve in the IDF. And we have implored our investigative and prosecutorial authorities to say that this is actually a very grave danger to our national security interests because of the terrorism that is being perpetrated, wide-scale national state terrorism by apartheid Israel. I mean, very importantly, I need to mention this, that the Center for Constitutional Rights found that genocide is defined not by a particular form of violence, but by general and pervasive violence. Settler colonial regimes are structurally prone to genocide and may indulge in genocidal moments when they become frustrated by the resistance of a colonized or occupied people. Human rights advocates and scholars conclude the killing of Palestinians and their forceful expulsion from Mandate Palestine in 1948, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza, and violence and discrimination directed at Palestinians by the Israeli government have violated a number of human rights protections containing international human rights, with genocide being among them. So it's very clear.
Okay, Ziyaad, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are running out of time. My next interview is on standby. Very quickly, how confident are you of making headway in this case? What is the outcome you're hoping to achieve? Obviously, the issue of Palestine is not going to disappear overnight. The Zionists are not going to leave Israel anytime soon. What is the most favorable outcome you're hoping for?
As activists and as working in the domain of law and international human rights, and with the institutions and Palestinian groups that are so passionate about the work that they do, and I must mention Safuddin Dester from Cape Town, the paramedic, who has so much of confidence and so much of hope that this is going to go somewhere. I as a have to follow the instructions of my clients, and of course, we want to advocate for Palestinian rights, human rights, and we just need one or two important decisions, and I believe the tables can turn, and we can advance lawfare advocacy in this country, and
Inshallah.
hopefully
Inshallah. I'm so sorry that we're limited for time, Ziyaad, but undoubtedly we are going to do a follow-up interview with you in a couple of weeks' time just to hear how the case is progressing. So thank you indeed for your time, and you go well. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakallah khair.